Tuesday, December 9th, 2025. Welcome to Make It Make Sense. I'm Grant Herms. Today on the show, with the end of the first year of the second Trump administration in sight, it looks like more than a few of Trump's members of his cabinet are on thin ice. Now, on the one hand, it's not unusual for cabinet members to only serve a year and then bow out. But on the other hand, it's different this time because people on the chopping block are some of the biggest names in the administration right now. We're talking about Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and of course, Pete Hegseth. And we could even be talking about a few others too. I thought today might be a good day to take a look at why some of those people might be on the outs, who might fall in to replace them, and what it would mean in an administration that's still pushing towards authoritarianism. But first, before we get to that, make sure you're subscribed to the show on whatever podcast app you listen to it on, and if you're a watcher on YouTube as well, sign up for the Make It Make Sense Substack, where I've got a really important story coming out tomorrow about the administration putting kids in harm's way, and we don't know the reason why. But that is only for paid subscribers. And if you're not one, you're in luck, because right now, Make It Make Sense is holding an end-of-the-year subscription drive. Paid subscribers get access to weekly original reporting, the brand new newsletter, Things You Forgot from Civics class, a quick hit of the stuff we should have learned or too embarrassed to say that we can't remember from social studies classes. This week's newsletter is all about who calls the shots when it comes to going to war. It felt timely. You'll also get access to the subscriber chat, the full archive of Make It Make Sense as well. Monthly paid subscriptions start at just $5 a month. Annual subscriptions are 20% off right now at $50 a year. So let's be honest, less than your next DoorDash order, and I promise you nothing you'll get from here will ever show up cold or soggy. And there's also our Making the Most Sense founding subscribers. You get all of that stuff, plus a locked-in price to make it make sense for life. Subscribe today at the links in the show notes or go to mimsnewspod.substack.com. All right, let's get on with the show. Give the gift of luxury this holiday season with Cozy Earth. Picture it. A quiet holiday morning, everyone together wrapped in warmth, laughter, and that perfect kind of cozy that you just wish you could bottle all the time. Well, a silent night starts with the right sheets. And Cozy Earth's bamboo sheets are the ultimate gift. It's everyday luxury elevated. The kind of comfort that turns every night into a serene escape no matter how much clatter arises. Plus, every sheet has a 100-day sleep trial and a 10-year warranty. You really cannot go wrong. And don't forget about the pajamas for those holiday mornings. The women's stretch knit and the men's bamboo sets are made for those slow, snuggly holiday moments at home. Visit CozyEarth.com and use my exclusive 40% off code MIMS25, that's MIMS25, to get 40% off your entire order this holiday season. And if you get a post-purchase survey, make sure you heard about Cozy Earth from Make It Make Sense. We get a cut of that money, so you're helping us and you get to stay warm this holiday season. Wrap the ones you love in luxury with Cozy Earth. All right, let's get back to the show. For the past few weeks, several members of Trump's cabinet have been making headlines, and not the kind he likes. These headlines had been the embarrassing for stupid reasons kind that also make us look directly at the grift, graft, and incompetence coming out of the White House. Last week was all about Pete Hegseth potentially committing war crimes in the Caribbean, and Trump was asked a lot about that last week. And if there's one thing he hates, it's when the press asks him questions about people who aren't him, especially in ways that make them seem more important than he is, or in ways that he can't turn into attacks against the media or turn into imagined victories. I mean, case in point, you could see how bored he was last week when he was asked about releasing the video of airstrikes on alleged drug boats.
Will you release video of that strike so that the American people can see for themselves what happened?
I don't know what they have, but whatever they have, we'd certainly release, no problem.
But then he was asked again on Monday after a weekend of cable news talking nonstop about how Pete Hegseth could torpedo Trump's possible military campaign into Venezuela. Trump lashed out at a reporter and then lied about saying he was going to release the video.
Mr. President, you said you would have no problem with releasing the full video of that strike on September 2nd off the coast of Venezuela. Secretary Hegseth now says...
You said that. I didn't say that. This is ABC fake news.
You said that you would have no problem releasing the full bit. Okay, well, Secretary Hegseth...
No, whatever Hegseth wants to do is okay with me.
He now says it's under review. Are you ordering the Secretary to release that full video?
Whatever he decides is okay with me.
So that is not a guy who's happy that he has to keep answering questions about this. And then, just today, he did what he does with people when he's ready to dump them. He shrugs, and he says he doesn't know anything while half-heartedly praising them.
Should he testify, Pete Hegseth, under oath before Congress about that controversial second strike on the alleged drug boat on September 2nd?
I don't care if he does. He can if he wants. I don't care.
Do you think he should?
I don't care. I would say do it if you want, Pete. He's doing a great job.
Have you watched the video?
He was stopping. I watched everything, yeah. I watch everything. I see a lot of things.
And do you believe that second strike was necessary?
Well, it looked like they were trying to turn back over the boat, but I don't get involved in that. That's up to them.
That's not great if you're Pete Hegseth. That's the president saying he doesn't care what his Secretary of Defense does because he's over it. And that tracks right along with some reporting from Michael Wolff at the Daily Beast this week about what Trump has been asking about a bunch of his cabinet members. Now, before I play this clip, you should know some things about Michael Wolff. He's been a Trump insider for years. He was close with Jeffrey Epstein, as we saw in recent emails. He's written several very unflattering books about Trump, particularly during his last presidency, and he often burns sources, meaning someone will tell him something off the record, and then he'll write or talk about it anyway. But he also tends to be right way more than he's wrong, especially about Trump, and has some of the best insights into how Trump thinks, pretty much more than anyone out there right now. So, full transparency here, I find him, well, slimy, but here's what he said this week about what he's being told, and I'm going to play this clip even though it's pretty long.
In the last couple of weeks, he's been on the phone, and that's always a tell with Trump, on the phone, and asking questions, the questions of which imply an answer. And they've been questions like, is Pete an ass slick? Is Pam a suck up? Is little...
Is Pete an ass slick? This is something he's actually been asking. Someone told you that they heard him say this.
Absolutely. And this would be completely in character. You know, the whole flattery sycophant thing is he wants it, he needs it, he demands it. And then it starts to irritate him. And again, irritate him because he's not getting enough of it, and irritating it because now he sees through it. So Pete becomes an ass slick, Pam becomes a suck up, and little Marco, he's asking, is he just saying what I want to hear? Well, patently he is, but this is all evidence of an indication of Trump's, disgruntlement with the people around him.
Now, I don't know why Trump is using words like ass lick, but I do think it's kind of funny to imagine Trump saying it in the Oval Office. Anyway, Trump is casting about for opinions because he is nothing if not someone who reacts to the pulse of a room. There's a famous quote from a French politician that goes, "There go the people, I must follow them, for I am their leader." And that really is how Trump operates. So it sounds clearly like Pete Hegseth's days are numbered, but so are FBI Director Kash Patel and Attorney General Pam Bondi's. Let's take them one at a time here. It was reported just before Thanksgiving that Trump was considering firing Kash Patel and possibly Dan Bongino, the deputy director of the FBI, the co-deputy director, I should say. Patel, like Hegseth, has made for embarrassing headlines, essentially since becoming FBI director. There was the bungled investigation into the murder of Charlie Kirk, where Patel initially posted online the FBI had arrested the alleged shooter when they hadn't. That instead of being on the ground right away, in the hunt for this shooter, Patel demanded he get a medium-sized FBI jacket, otherwise he wouldn't leave the plane when it landed in Utah, forcing FBI agents to scramble to find him one. That came from an actual Senate report. Patel also bragged about an alleged foiled terror plot in Michigan before the raid had gone through proper channels yet, potentially putting the entire case at risk. He posted images of shell casings found at the scene of an alleged shooter outside an ICE facility in Dallas. before the investigation was completed, something FBI directors just do not do. And that's not even the embarrassing stuff. In just the last few weeks, reports have been coming out that Kash Patel has been using taxpayer money to fly the FBI director's private jet to go see his girlfriend, an aspiring country singer, whom rumors on the right have been spreading about that she's some kind of foreign spy because she's young and attractive, and Patel is the kind of guy who would fall for a honeypot trap, which is just not the thing you want your side of the aisle to be saying. But his girlfriend is also suing a bunch of people who spread that rumor in earnest. I'm not saying that she is one here. That's just what's being said. But nonetheless, Patel used our money to go see her perform at a rodeo and then gave her government security by assigning an FBI SWAT team, so not even a personal protection team, to guard her, again, using our money. Now, Patel says it's because of threats against her life, but he hasn't provided any proof, and normally, again, this isn't the kind of thing an FBI director would do. The White House is denying early reports about thinking about firing Patel. The White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, said when Trump was told about the headline that he coincidentally was in the room with Patel and said, "Hey, let's take a picture together to show how much I like you." And then they posted a pic of them together. But Trump is also someone who turns on a dime. And these kinds of headlines make Trump look like a fool, which is something he doesn't take lightly. The same thing goes for Dan Bongino, the, again, co-deputy director of the FBI. Bongino was, like Patel, a right-wing podcaster before getting the job to essentially run the day-to-day operations at the FBI. Bongino made his name by spreading conspiracy theories, particularly about the 2020 election, Epstein, and the deep state. He's been publicly frustrated with the lack of willingness of the FBI to indulge in those conspiracies and the fact that when he got into the FBI, it turned out that none of those conspiracies were what he said they were. Shocker. I know. And then this week, he made news for a thing that will definitely put him on Trump's naughty list.
But I don't want to, listen, I was paid in the past, Sean, for my opinions. That's clear. And one day I'll be back in that space. But that's not what I'm paid for now. I'm paid to be your deputy director. And we base investigations on facts. And, it was interesting. I was looking out in the crowd today at the presser.
So what Bongino just admitted to there is that for years, as a podcaster and a host/contributor at Fox News, he was paid to lie. And it was those lies that put him on Trump's radar, and admitting that he duped the president, let alone all of his viewers, is undercutting the president, and by one step further, causing people to wonder just how easy it is to fool Trump. Again, not a headline or questions the president likes. And staying in the Department of Justice, Trump has also been wondering about Pam Bondi. You heard Michael Wolff talk about that. This one actually makes the most sense to me because it was Bondi who ruined the plan about releasing the Epstein files. She was the one who said the files existed in the first place and were on her desk very early this year. And that set off a timeline and a firestorm of when they'd get released. And if there has been any story that has been damaging to the president with his own supporters, it's the Epstein files. And Bondi, like Patel, has also bungled a lot of the cases right now, many of them surrounding deportations. The Department of Justice, under her, has consistently lost in court and has failed to get indictments of Trump's political enemies that he told her to indict. And while Bondi isn't actively involved in those cases all the time, it's still her DOJ as the Attorney General. That brings us to the last person who Trump might have headed for the door. And this one actually surprised me this week. It's Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem. It's surprising because if there's anything that Trump set out to do in his first year that's going mostly according to plan, it's ramping up fear-inducing immigration raids and stopping border crossings. Trump also likes Noem. He likes the way she looks in photo ops, riding a horse or wearing ice body armor or carrying a gun. She spent hundreds of millions of dollars on ad campaigns thanking Trump personally. She filmed a video during the shutdown blaming Democrats for delays at TSA, a video that breaks the law about using government communication for political reasons, but she did that for Trump. She continually kisses his ass in every single cabinet meeting. Just last week, she thanked Trump for keeping hurricanes away like he's Poseidon.
Been absolutely fantastic. Sir, you made it through hurricane season without a hurricane. Yeah. And so FEMA, you kept the hurricanes away. So we appreciate that. And
so I know it was probably a joke, but the way that entire thing was framed is weird. Like the president steered us through a hurricaneless year, which also is just a weird way to say that. But all that aside, it was surprising this week to see Noem's name be talked about as someone who's on the outs. Largely, according to reporting from Notice, it's because Republicans in Congress are fed up with her, specifically because she implemented a rule that she has to sign off on any Homeland Security spending over $100,000, which has slowed FEMA disaster relief, among many other things, from being sent out on time. It's one thing to have oversight and want to have more of it. It's another to block money for people in need. On top of it, she's come under fire for having the Coast Guard, which is run by DHS during peacetime, buy her 2 new private jets to the tune of $100 million per plane. She's living rent-free at the Coast Guard's Commandant Mansion, something the DHS secretary doesn't normally do. She says it's for her safety, but hasn't released any details to the public or to Congress to back up that need. She also helped funnel $200 million to a PR firm for those ads about Donald Trump. That firm has close ties to her alleged boyfriend, and it's led by the husband of her press secretary. So, much like Kash Patel, the president doesn't like these kinds of scandals that force Americans to be confronted with the bald-faced grifting that's happening in this administration. It makes him look stupid and, again, easily duped. Now, there are also a few other names floating around there. You heard Michael Wolff mention Marco Rubio. There's also Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent. But those are much less talked about, partly because they tend to stay out of the broader public eye and out of broader controversy, but they're still in the mix. So, if all these people are gone, the head of the Defense, Justice, the FBI, and Homeland Security, the departments in charge of Trump's signature pieces of this presidency, who's going to replace them? That's a good question. There are a few names when it comes to the DOJ or DHS, like Stephen Miller, the current Deputy Chief of Staff, National Security Advisor, SPLC designated white supremacist hate monger, who is reportedly really calling the shots when it comes to immigration. Tom Homan, the president's border czar, is also a name on those lists for DOJ or DHS. And then there are a number of private business leaders like Eric Prince, the CEO of Blackwater, a private security/mercenary group who is a big Trump backer and has pitched that the U.S. colonize Latin America and Africa, and earlier this year offered to set up an unprecedented non-governmental fast-tracking of deportations to Central American prisons, essentially a subcontracted program of disappearing people. He would likely be at the top of a list for something like the Department of Defense or DHS. Then there's also the current CEO of Palantir or its founder, Peter Thiel, the backer of J.D. Vance. Palantir is the cyber surveillance giant that's already got billions of dollars in government money and access to the data of tens of millions of Americans thanks to Doge, which also brings up, of course, Elon Musk, who could be on those lists for similar reasons. Now, the drawback for all of those people is that they're really bad on TV. That is a drawback for Trump because he wants a cabinet made for TV. He wants people out there who can do the messaging in the way that he wants it, and those guys just aren't really equipped for that. Trump could also try to appoint J.D. Vance to be something like the Attorney General or some other position to consolidate, say, Marco Rubio as Secretary of State to also head up DHS. But in the end, all of this is just speculation, and it runs into another major problem. It's that these jobs need confirming from the Senate, and that has not been going very well for Donald Trump. 2-1. So far, Trump has made 388 nominations for open positions in the U.S. government in this term, out of the 1,100 or so that need people to fill them. Of his nominations, just under half have been approved by the Senate, which is constitutionally mandated, with many others not being filled or being held up by members of the Senate with what are called blue slips. They're actual physical blue pieces of paper. It's not really important that you know how exactly that works, just know that they're called blue slips. Basically what it means is a senator can put a hold on any nomination for any reason. It's a rule in the Senate. It's why Trump does a lot of appointing people into acting roles, but those can't last forever. And recently, judges have said that several acting U.S. attorneys were in their jobs illegally, which means if Trump fires Noem or Hegseth or Patel, he's going to have a really hard time filling those positions in the way that he wants with the people he wants if he can't get senators to approve them or courts to not throw them out. And going forward, there just isn't a lot of appetite among Republicans in the Senate specifically to give Trump everything he wants in the way that they had after he was elected. They're not going to stop everyone, but most senators had to pick lesser evils during the first go-round, many opting to block Matt Gaetz, specifically from becoming Attorney General, while then having to swallow their pride when it came to Hegseth or Patel. It was just part of the way this works. But this time, given that being forced to do that made them look like they got played, they're not going to want to do it twice. In the meantime, only some of the people that I've talked about could be asked to step down. All of them could, maybe none of them could, but I think that's really unlikely. What it does mean is that we're likely heading into more chaos, this time from inside the White House, much like how it was in Trump's last term, the way that it ended, which means as we look towards 2026, it could be a bumpy start to the year. All right. That's it for today's episode. Please rate and review the show on whatever podcast app you listen to it on. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications if you're a watcher on YouTube. Sign up for the Make It Make Sense Substack. We've got a subscription drive happening right now. You can find links to that in the show notes. And as always, share the show on social media. It's MIMS News Pod. That's MIMS News Pod, all one word on every platform. I am at Grant Herms on Twitter and Blue Sky, and at Grant_Herms on everything else. Thank you so much for listening today. I'm Grant Herms, and I'll talk to you on Thursday.